All right, so you guys sent us excerpts from this book chapter, and it's wild.
Oh, yeah,
It's called Impeachments and Legal Battles about Trump's presidency.
Buckle up.
Seriously, buckle up, because
Perhaps.
we're about to go deep into a period in American history.
Yeah, that was unlike any other.
Like no other, and it makes you wonder how anyone could even function in the White House with this constant pressure cooker atmosphere.
Yeah, it's true. No other modern president has faced this level of legal scrutiny.
Right.
It's totally unprecedented, and it really sets the Trump presidency apart.
So the chapter starts with the first impeachment.
Okay.
And it jumps right into the thick of things with that July 25th phone call between Trump and Zelensky.
Oh, yeah, that call.
Yeah.
That was a turning point for sure.
Yeah.
The do us a favor, quote, the holdup of military aid to Ukraine.
Yeah.
It all just raised this big question of quid pro quo. Was Trump using his presidential power to pressure a foreign leader
Right.
for his own political gain?
It's like something out of a movie.
Yeah.
And then you have this anonymous whistleblower,
Right.
a single person who basically brought the whole thing to light.
That's right. Talk about David versus Goliath.
Oh, totally.
It's amazing how one complaint turned into this full-blown impeachment inquiry.
Yeah.
And the hearings that followed those were captivating.
Oh, yeah.
We heard from these top diplomats like Ambassador Taylor and Fiona Hill,
Right.
and they were painting this picture of a president who was willing to push the boundaries of his authority.
And don't forget Gordon Sondland.
Oh, right, son.
He was Trump's ambassador to the EU.
Yeah.
And basically admitted there was a quid pro quo.
Yeah, in plain language.
Yeah.
His testimony was a turning point, I think.
Yeah.
It provided hard evidence that supported the allegations against Trump.
It felt like this huge political drama unfolding in real time.
Right.
And it was so incredibly divided with
Yeah.
figures like Alexander Vindman, a decorated military officer,
Right.
facing all this criticism from Republican
Yeah,
lawmakers.
you could really feel that division through the entire process. The House vote to impeach fell largely along party lines,
Right.
which just shows how entrenched the two sides had become.
And of course, Trump became only the third president in U.S. history to be impeached.
Right.
Then the focus shifted to the Senate for the trial.
Yeah,
Chief Justice Roberts presiding. You can almost picture the tension in the room.
I know. The Senate trial was historic in its own right.
Yeah.
The House impeachment managers presented their case, arguing that Trump abused his power and obstructed Congress.
Right.
And then Trump's defense team countered by claiming the entire process was just a politically motivated witch hunt.
Yeah, the whole thing was just so divisive.
It really was.
The biggest controversy revolved around whether to call witnesses,
Right.
particularly John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor.
Yeah, Bolton was reportedly ready to testify
Yeah.
about key events. But ultimately, the Senate voted against hearing from him.
Which was controversial.
Incredibly controversial.
Democrats arguing that it prevented a fair trial, while Republicans maintained that it was unnecessary.
Right, they said it would just prolong the process.
It's interesting to think how the outcome might have been different
Yeah.
if Bolton had been allowed to testify.
Who knows?
But as it stands, the Senate ultimately voted to acquit Trump.
Right, and that acquittal, despite some Republican dissent, just fueled Trump's defiant claims that the whole impeachment was a hoax.
Right, and it seemed to embolden him as he headed into the 2020 election.
Absolutely.
Which, unfortunately for the country, brings us to the second impeachment.
Oh, boy.
Talk about a roller coaster ride.
Fasten your seatbelts.
Remember, this is all stemming from the same book chapter you sent us. And things are about to get even more intense.
Yeah, the second impeachment was sparked by the events of January 6th,
Right.
the attack on the U.S. Capitol.
But to understand how we got there, we need to talk about the big lie.
Right.
Trump's relentless efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election.
All those claims of widespread voter fraud,
Okay.
the pressure on state officials to find votes,
Right.
it created this climate of distrust and anger among his supporters.
Exactly. Trump's rhetoric was incredibly dangerous.
It was.
And it culminated in that January 6th rally where he urged his supporters to fight like hell.
Oh, yeah.
And we all know what happened next.
Right. Thousands of those supporters marched to the Capitol, stormed the building, and disrupted the certification of the election results.
The images of that day are truly shocking.
They are.
Rioters breaking into the Capitol, lawmakers fleeing for their safety, violence against police officers.
Yeah,
It was a direct assault on American democracy.
it was.
It's hard to believe something like that could happen in the United States.
I know. And Trump's delayed response to the violence just fueled the outrage.
Totally. His continued claims of a stolen election, even as the Capitol was under attack,
Yeah.
demonstrated a blatant disregard for the peaceful transfer of power.
Absolutely.
It's almost unimaginable.
It is.
And the fallout was immediate.
Right. The House moved quickly to impeach Trump for incitement of insurrection.
And this time the vote was bipartisan.
That's a key difference between the two impeachments.
Right.
The second one had the support of several Republicans, including Liz Cheney, who delivered this powerful speech condemning Trump's actions.
Cheney's stance was incredibly courageous.
It was?
It showed that some Republicans were willing to put country over party and hold Trump accountable for his role in the insurrection.
Absolutely. And that vote to impeach led to yet another historic Senate trial.
Right.
This one focusing on the question of whether a former president could be tried for actions taken while in office.
The second Senate trial was unlike anything we'd ever witnessed before.
It was emotionally charged.
Yeah, with raw footage from the Capitol attack playing a prominent role in the proceeding.
Right. The House impeachment managers presented a very compelling case.
Yeah.
Arguing that Trump's words and actions directly incited the violence.
They highlighted his months-long campaign to undermine the election results.
Yeah, and his inflammatory rhetoric at the January 6th rally.
Trump's defense team, on the other hand, focused on his First Amendment rights and argued that the trial itself was unconstitutional.
They claimed that Trump's words were protected political speech.
Right.
And that he couldn't be held responsible for the actions of the rioters.
But the House managers countered by pointing out that Trump had also told his supporters to fight like hell.
Right.
And that he waited hours to call off the attack.
Yeah, they argued that his actions clearly demonstrated an intent to incite violence.
It was a fascinating legal and constitutional debate.
It was.
With both sides presenting strong arguments.
In the end, the Senate voted to acquit Trump.
Right.
But it was the most bipartisan impeachment vote in history.
Even though Trump was acquitted, the second impeachment trial had a lasting impact.
Absolutely.
It further cemented the narrative that he had incited the insurrection.
Right.
And solidified the deep divisions within the Republican Party.
Over his actions.
It also raised important questions about the limits of presidential power, the role of free speech in a democracy, and the importance of upholding the rule of law.
Big question.
And believe it or not, there's more to unpack.
There is.
The legal battles didn't stop at the Capitol steps.
No, they didn't. Trump faced a whole web of investigations and lawsuits throughout his presidency and beyond.
That's right. Remember the Mueller investigation?
Oh, yeah.
It consumed the first half of his presidency.
It did.
And led to numerous convictions of his associates.
Right.
And then there was the Stormy Daniels scandal.
Oh, yeah.
Which raised serious questions about campaign finance violations.
The list goes on.
Yeah.
Investigations into the Trump Organization, allegations of election interference in Georgia.
It seems like the legal challenges were endless.
It really does.
It's mind-boggling, the sheer volume of controversy surrounding Trump's time in office.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder how he managed to navigate all of this without completely imploding.
Well, it's a testament to his resilience, I guess.
Right.
His ability to deflect criticism.
And his unwavering base of supporters.
Right.
But it also speaks to the deep polarization of American politics.
It does.
These legal battles were often viewed through a partisan lens.
Yeah, with Republicans largely defending Trump and Democrats calling for his accountability.
That polarization was evident throughout his presidency and has continued long after he left office.
It's a stark reminder of the challenges facing American democracy.
So we've covered a lot of ground already. 2 impeachments, the Mueller investigation, the Stormy Daniels saga, and just a glimpse into the wider web of legal challenges that defined the Trump presidency.
It's a complex and at times overwhelming story.
It is.
But it's a crucial one to understand because it speaks to these fundamental questions about the nature of presidential power, the rule of law, and the future of American democracy.
I think we need to take a breath and process all of this before we dive even deeper into those questions. Stay with us, because we'll be right back with more insights into the tumultuous legal battles of the Trump presidency. Okay, so before we took a break, you mentioned the Mueller investigation.
Yeah.
Which was all over the news for years.
It was for years.
Can you remind us what that was all about and why it was such a big deal?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Mueller investigation was launched to investigate Russian interference in the 2016 election.
Okay.
And whether there was any coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia.
So was there?
It was led by special counsel Robert Mueller.
Right.
A former FBI director.
Okay. So did they find any evidence of collusion? That was the big question everyone was asking at the time, right?
Yeah, that was the big question.
Yeah.
Well, the Mueller report ultimately concluded that there wasn't enough evidence to establish a criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia.
So case closed?
Well, not exactly.
Not exactly, I'm guessing,
Right.
based on all the legal battles that followed.
Right. Well, the report didn't find a smoking gun on collusion.
Okay.
It did detail several instances where Trump may have obstructed justice
Okay.
by trying to interfere with the investigation.
Hold on. Obstruction of justice.
Yeah.
Sounds serious.
It is.
Can you break that down for us? Sure.
What exactly does that mean in this context?
So essentially, obstruction of justice involves interfering with a legal investigation.
Okay.
Like trying to influence witnesses, tamper with evidence,
Right.
or pressure investigators.
Okay.
The Mueller report highlighted actions like Trump's firing of FBI Director James Comey
Right.
and his attempts to have Mueller himself removed from the investigation.
That does sound pretty incriminating.
Yeah.
So what happened? Was Trump ever charged with obstruction of justice?
That's where things get complicated.
Okay.
There's a long-standing debate about whether a sitting president can be indicted,
Right.
and then Attorney General William Barr
Okay.
concluded that the evidence wasn't strong enough to warrant charges.
Okay.
But Mueller himself never fully cleared Trump on obstruction.
So it sounds like there was a lot of ambiguity
Yeah.
surrounding the Mueller report's conclusions.
Or was.
It didn't exactly exonerate Trump,
Right.
but it didn't lead to any concrete charges against him either. Yeah.
Exactly. It was a very politically charged situation,
Yeah.
and the report's findings were interpreted very differently
Right.
by people on both sides of the aisle.
So that's the Mueller investigation in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Full of intrigue,
Uh-huh.
but ultimately inconclusive in some ways.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
But you also mentioned the Stormy Daniels scandal,
Oh, yes.
which felt like a completely different kind of legal battle.
It did. It did.
What can you tell us about that?
All right, the Stormy Daniels saga. This one involves allegations of an extramarital affair,
Okay.
hush money payments,
Right.
and campaign finance violations.
Yeah.
It was a major source of controversy for Trump throughout his presidency.
Okay, let's unpack this one step by step.
Okay.
Who is Stormy Daniels and what exactly were the allegations against Trump?
So Stormy Daniels is an adult film actress who alleged that she had an affair with Trump
Oh,
years before he became president. Trump denied the affair,
right.
but his personal lawyer, Michael Cohen,
Arranged a hush money payment to Daniels
right.
shortly before the 2016 election to keep her quiet.
So that sounds like a personal matter.
Uh-huh.
But how did it turn into a legal issue for Trump?
Well, the timing and nature of the payments
Right.
raised some serious legal questions.
Okay.
Prosecutors argued that the hush money was intended to influence the outcome of the election
Okay.
and therefore constituted an illegal campaign contribution.
So it wasn't the affair itself that was illegal?
Right.
But the way the hush money was handled?
Exactly.
And whether it violated campaign finance laws?
That's right. Cohen eventually pleaded guilty to campaign finance violation
Okay.
and other charges,
Wow.
admitting that he made the payments at Trump's direction.
That's pretty damning.
It is.
What was Trump's response to all of this?
Well, Trump denied any wrongdoing
Okay.
and claimed that the payments were a personal matter unrelated to the campaign.
Okay.
But the scandal clearly tarnished his reputation and contributed to the perception that he was willing to skirt the law to protect himself.
It's amazing how these legal battles just kept piling up
They did.
throughout Trump's presidency.
It seemed like one after another.
We've got the Mueller investigation, the Stormy Daniels scandal,
Right.
and I know there was more. What else were investigators looking into?
Well, there was a major investigation into the Trump Organization,
Okay.
Trump's family business,
Okay.
focusing on potential financial crimes like tax fraud and bank fraud.
Okay, so not just political scandals,
Right.
but potential business dealings gone wrong too.
Yeah, and this investigation was separate from the federal probes
Okay.
and involved scrutiny of Trump's business practices spanning several years.
And then there was the whole controversy surrounding Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 election results,
Oh, yeah,
particularly in Georgia.
that's right. Fulton County District Attorney Fenny Willis
Okay.
launched an investigation into Trump's efforts to pressure Georgia officials to find him enough votes to win the state.
You might recall that infamous phone call he made to Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger.
Oh, yeah.
The one where he asked Raffensperger to find him 11,780 votes.
Yeah, he was shocking.
It was shocking to hear a president trying to pressure a state official
Yeah.
to overturn a Democratic election.
Absolutely.
That phone call became a central focus of the Georgia investigation,
It did.
which was looking into whether Trump violated state election laws.
Right.
It's incredible how all these legal battles were happening simultaneously
I know.
on different fronts throughout his presidency.
Yeah.
And even after he left office,
It was relentless.
it was a relentless barrage of legal challenges,
It was.
each with its own complexities and potential consequences.
Right. And it's a reminder of how much scrutiny
Right.
and accountability comes with the presidency.
Yeah.
Even though Trump often seemed to defy those norms.
It's almost overwhelming to think about the sheer volume
It is.
of legal troubles he faced.
Hmm.
It must have been incredibly distracting for him as president, to say the least.
It certainly raises questions about whether he was able to devote his full attention
Right.
to governing the country amidst all these legal battles.
Yeah.
But it also speaks to the resilience of American institutions,
Right.
which were able to investigate and hold him accountable
Yeah.
despite his efforts to obstruct or dismiss those efforts.
It's almost like he was constantly on defense,
Yeah.
fighting off these legal challenges while trying to run the country.
And those constant legal battles undoubtedly shaped his presidency,
Right.
influencing his decisions, his rhetoric, and his relationships
Yeah.
with other branches of government.
It's clear that the Trump presidency was unlike any other in American history.
At least in terms of the sheer volume and intensity of legal challenges.
Absolutely.
And it's important to understand these legal battles not just as isolated events,
Right?
but as part of a larger narrative
Okay.
about the limits of presidential power,
Uh-huh.
the importance of the rule of law, and the fragility of democratic norms.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
And I think we've only scratched the surface.
We have.
We've talked about the Mueller investigation,
Right.
the Stormy Daniels saga,
Right?
the probes into the Trump organization,
Yeah.
and the 2020 election interference in Georgia.
And all of those investigations and legal battles
Yeah.
had far-reaching consequences, not just for Trump himself,
Right?
but for American politics,
Yeah,
our legal system,
right.
and even our understanding of the presidency.
Before we wrap up, it feels like we need to connect all of this back to the book chapter you sent us
Right?
and consider what it all means in a larger context. Stay with us,
Okay.
because we'll be right back with some final thoughts
Right.
on the legal and political legacy of the Trump presidency. Okay, so we've spent this whole deep dive talking about legal battles and investigations and accusations.
Yeah.
It's heavy stuff.
It is. It is.
It's easy to get lost in all the legal complexities.
Right.
But it's important to remember that these weren't just abstract concepts.
No, they weren't.
They had real-world consequences
Yeah.
for real people.
They absolutely did.
Yeah.
And I think it's crucial to remember that,
Yeah.
these weren't just headlines.
Right.
These were events that really impacted people's lives.
Yeah, their career,
Yeah.
their reputations.
And it wasn't just Trump who was affected.
Right, exactly.
They saw political careers,
Rise and fall.
rise and fall. Yeah.
Loyalties tested.
Yeah.
Friendships fractured.
It's true. The constant pressure and scrutiny took a toll on everyone involved.
And it wasn't just the political players either, right?
Yeah.
This whole saga really divided the country,
Yeah.
turning neighbors against each other and families against themselves.
That's one of the most concerning legacies of this period.
Yeah.
It feels like we lost the ability
Yeah.
to even have civil conversations about politics.
Everything became so polarized,
Yeah.
so black and white.
It's like everyone retreated to their own corners,
Right.
and we're only listening to voices that already agreed with them.
Exactly. And that's dangerous for any democracy.
It is. It is.
When we lose the ability to listen to different viewpoints,
Right.
to engage in healthy debate,
Right.
we lose our ability to find common ground
Yeah.
and move forward as a society.
Absolutely.
So what do we do now?
Yeah.
How do we rebuild trust,
Yeah.
bridge these divides, and ensure that something like this never happens again?
Right. Those are the million-dollar questions.
Yeah,
And there are no easy answers.
right.
It's going to take a lot of work,
Yeah,
a lot of open-mindedness,
yeah,
and a willingness to listen to each other,
yeah.
even when we disagree.
We can't just blindly accept everything we see on social media or hear from our preferred news sources.
We can't.
We need to be more discerning,
Yes.
more critical in our thinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We need to be aware of our own biases.
Yeah.
Seek out diverse perspectives.
Right.
And be open to changing our minds when
Yeah.
we're presented with new evidence.
It's also about holding our leaders accountable, regardless of their political party.
That's right.
We can't let partisanship blind us to wrongdoing
No, we can't.
or allow those in power to abuse their authority.
I completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
We need to demand transparency, integrity,
Yeah.
and a commitment to upholding the rule of law
Yeah.
from all of our elected officials.
Okay, so critical thinking,
Mm-hmm.
open-mindedness,
Yeah.
accountability.
Right.
It sounds like a good starting point,
It does.
but it feels like such a daunting task.
It is daunting.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Right.
But remember, this isn't the first time American democracy has been tested.
That's true.
We've faced difficult challenges before.
Yeah.
And we've always found a way to come together
Yeah.
and move forward.
You're right. We're a resilient nation.
We are.
And we have this long tradition
We are.
of striving to form a more perfect union, as the Constitution says.
Exactly. And that's the spirit we need to recapture.
Yeah.
We need to rediscover our shared values, our commitment to democracy, and our belief in the power of dialogue and compromise.
I love that. It's not about erasing our differences,
No.
but about finding ways to bridge them
Yeah,
and work together toward a common goal.
precisely. We need to move beyond that us versus them mentality
Right.
and remember that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
That's the challenge before us now.
Yeah.
It won't be easy,
No.
but it's essential if we want to preserve our democracy
Right.
and create a better future.
Well said. And on that hopeful note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive
Yeah.
into the legal and political turmoil of the Trump presidency.
It's been quite a journey.
It has been. But I hope you've come away with a deeper understanding
Yeah.
of this pivotal period in American history
I hope so.
and the lasting impact it continues to have on our nation.
It's a big one.
It is. And remember, this is just the beginning.
Right.
There's so much more to learn and explore.
Absolutely.
Keep asking questions, keep challenging your assumptions,
Yeah.
and keep engaging in thoughtful conversations.
Those are the best tools we have
Yeah,
for navigating these complex times
right.
and shaping a more informed and engaged citizenry.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
My pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those conversations going.